Blood sports, mankind's favorite means of entertainment. Nothing like watching people tear each other apart in a fight to the death while cheering with your friends. Of course, nowadays the to the death part has become complicated because things like human rights and ethics get in the way of it, so we've developed new forms of entertainment, one of the most modern ones being virtual YouTubers. Now, if you clicked on this video, I assume I don't have to tell you what a VTuber is. People streaming and making videos using a 2D avatar. They're everywhere, they've become incredibly popular in the past few months, and it looks like they're here to stay. So, why not combine our entertainment of Held with the technological advances of today? A VTuber Bloodsport. Of course, being virtual and all, they had to settle for a virtual Bloodsport, in this case the ever-popular Battle Royale Apex Legends. 25 teams of your favorite VTubers competing in a battle to the death to see who stands on top as the Apex Predator. What else could you ask for? So, step yourselves in, because today I'll be telling you the tale of the world's first VTuber Battle Royale tournament. The tournament was held by virtual YouTuber Shibuya Hao and took place back in August 2nd of this year. The format was simple enough. Kills would earn your team points, and so would placing in the top 10 of any match. After 4 games, the team with most points would be crowned the winner. Now, many VTubers participated in this tournament, but in this video we'll be looking at 3 of the 25 teams, more specifically the 3 teams representing Hololive Productions, referred from now on as HoloPro. The first one I'm sure all of you will be familiar with. 3 girls from the super popular Hololive virtual idol group. Natsuhiro Matsuri, infamous and beloved in equal measure, Nakiri Ayame, who graces us with a stream every now and then, and Roboko-san, a high-spec gaming robot. Together, the 3 formed Team Happy Set, and they were here to win. Matsuri especially was taking this tournament very seriously. She had trained a lot for it and even had help from a professional player as a coach. Our second team are the Star Sweepers, commanded by the man, the myth, the menace, Kageyama Shien, Guilty off, showing his foot on stream by accident, electrocuting himself to the point of an orgasm on stream, walking around town in Pikachu underwear he thought were shorts, setting his birthday to the same day as he opened his Twitter account and getting banned for being 0 days old. Among many other feats, our resident Yugi Muto impersonator sought to add another legend to his ever-growing list of feats. This time, by entering a serious Apex tournament where both of his teammates, fellow Holostars Hanasaki Miyabi and Rika, would play using controllers. Yes, in a serious competitive tournament, where all other contestants were on mouse and keyboard. Truly, a feat worthy of a Mafia boss. Last but definitely not least, led by Estoleda, Boy Wonder, Disney aficionado and Apex addict, followed by his steadfast Apex companion and fellow Holostar Izuru, as well as HoloPro's #1 sexually confusing member Kira, Team Chibi Stars was formed. With a passion like no other, relying on their aim, unbroken companionship, guts and glory, these boys were here for the win. But they weren't here alone. Many other faces of VTubing joined at this crossroads of fate. Some notorious challengers include Team Kanachi Kuzu, composed of Niji Sanji's dynamic duo of Kuzuha and Kanai, backed by the extra might of Chihiro, a girl who seemingly just plays Apex all day every day. Team Gigi, the all-girl team of Kurumi Noa, Sumire Kaga and Nose Uruha, the latter which you might recognize from Toa's streams if you're a Hololive fan. And Team Tokyo School Town, the favorite team to win. This trio of relatively small VTubers, Seto Asahi, Hachiten and Pakayo, were no underdogs in this battlefield. They were all high-level players with an unparalleled level of strategic cohesion. And still, another force loomed on the horizon. A mysterious entity that would prove to be the bane of our heroes. Oh, and also Pikame and Kuku were also competing, as well as many other notorious VTubers, but much as I like them, they really didn't do much here, so we'll be forgetting about them for the rest of this story. Sorry guys. The day had finally come. Expectations were high. Fans from around the globe of Hololive, Nijisanji and indie VTuber alike had their eyes trained on the many different streams. The Happy Set girls were a bit nervous. The Chibi stars were trying to get as fired up as possible, presumably to overcome the same nervousness, and Kageyama Shien was adding another feat to his list by not entering the lobby on time and making the organizers have to set everything up again. But soon enough, the first match began. The ship's vector passed straight over Fragment, the game's most hectic and popular drop spot. Teams at this point were still a bit shy though. Surely only the strongest contenders would be so bold as to drop there first thing in the tournament. The Chibi Stars decided to make their first drop of the night on Refinery, but had to change their minds halfway through the drop as it was being contested by another team, and so they ended up landing in Overlook, a remote town to the north of the map. Just south of there, in the unnamed village near the tunnels, is where Team Star Sweepers would be making their drop, and Team Happy Set decided on a more conservative approach, landing at Lava City on the far south of the map to get a better chance at looting up before fighting. The Chibi Stars had the opposite strategy in mind, however, as from the moment they dropped they were looking for a fight. Esto led them down to the Star Sweepers drop spot looking for some action, but our controller boys had already fled. Nevertheless, the Chibi Stars wouldn't have to wait a lot longer, for a team approached them instead. And this is where tragedy began. Because you see, my friends, had this team been anyone else in the tournament, even Tokyo School Town, I believe that the fiery hearts and teamwork of Asto, Izuru and Kira would have led them to victory. But this was no mere man or women they were fighting against. This was the virtual gorilla. 160 kilograms of pure gamer, this VTuber from the ancient times of 2018 was here to crush all who stood on his path. Strategy, team cohesion, positioning, it didn't mean anything to this primate menace, as this powerhouse ripped through his opponents with his immaculate aim. You see, Virtual Gorilla was on another level compared to his opponents. This tournament had a maximum rank restriction of Diamond, but this restriction only applied to your current rank. And while he was Diamond in the season where this tournament took place, the Gorilla had proven good enough to have been a master previously, and this gap in skill level was immediately evident. Fight as hard as they did, our boys fell one after the other under his mighty paws.
一人返したポータル引きボタル
このやだかも。
いやごめんいやソリどんまい
The first of HoloPro teams fell. This monkey meant trouble. But first, let me make a quick interjection. Virtual Gorilla is the perfect antagonist for our story, but I want to make it clear that I have nothing against him. Matter of fact, he has some really good songs on his channel and has even done a duet with none other than Hololive's goddess Token Osora. His design is a relic of when VTubers were still getting their bearings, and it seemed like a good idea to be a gorilla on the internet. He's a genuinely nice guy, but for the sake of a good story, he'll be today's villain. So anyway, in the meantime, Team Happy Set faced their first technical difficulties of the night. Roboco's PC was acting up, causing her to disconnect. This left Matsuri and Ayame stuck in the dome, protecting the lifeless body of their companion until she was able to return. But alas, this chance would never come, for our metaphorically carnivorous gorilla had tasted the blood of idols, and he wanted more. He moved down the map, seemingly making a beeline towards the next HoloPro team, and eventually found Happy Set. Stuck inside of a building, one person down, Matsuri and Ayame were no match for the monkey menace. And so, another team fell.
もう一人入ってる。今一人だけ。ごめん。きついな。どんまい。ナイスナイス。
But surely Star Sweepers would do better. Surely they were far away fighting a lesser team. Well, not exactly. In fact, they were cooped up chatting the match away inside of these caves, which you might have noticed are really near to Gorilla's current position. So yeah, he went there and killed them all.
あ、やばいなこれ、やばいな。いやー、防がれた。いやー、いやー、でもウルトが入ったかこれ。いやー、ダメだったか。厳しい。バレたね。何も当てられなかったけど。
And so, on that day, Hololive received a grim reminder that their sub count, their status as idols, meant nothing. This was a blood sport. This was a fight to the death, with men, women, and beasts alike. And they were decidedly not the only ones here to win.
ボール1個分高かったか。
After our heroes fell, the match progressed with Team Tokyo School Town going through teams on one side of the map, while the Gorilla destroyed teams on the other. It was inevitable that they would have to fight in the final circle, and so began this Clash of Titans. But you see, Apex is a team game, and that part matters a lot. I haven't mentioned them yet, but on Gorilla's team you had Maker and Inui, both good players on their own right, but not as good as their primate partner. And when you're in an Apex team where you play better than your teammates, it becomes difficult to coordinate pushes and make plays. You're simply playing at a pace that your teammates can't keep up with. Meanwhile, Tokyo School Town, while they didn't have a single star player like the Monkey Menace, were all on the same page. Their communication was top-notch, their strategies on point, and together they were able to outwit the primal might of the virtual gorilla and take him down, crowning them the winners of the first game of the night. It was time to go back to the lobby and prepare for the second game. Our heroes were at the bottom of the leaderboard, with 2 measly points across all 9 players. They were shook, for sure. Roboco felt bad for having disconnected, but they all laughed it off and pinned it on bad luck. To have faced one of the strongest players as their first battle in the tournament was something that was out of their control, so they shook it off and headed into the second match. This time, with Tokyo School Town being announced as the champions for all to see, the ship was passing right above Epicenter. The Chibi Stars went for a fast drop at Overlook. The Star Sweepers boldly went headfirst into Epicenter, while the girls, perhaps having their confidence a bit shaken, decided on a more conservative drop again, going all the way to Lava City. Right at the start, the Chibi Stars decided to repeat their strategy, looting fast and rotating down to the village in an attempt to score some early kills, finding a team that was still looting and managing to score a kill on one of their members. The Star Sweepers miraculously were the only team to drop Epicenter despite it being right under the ship, perhaps a testament to how feared the controller players' auras were, which gave them plenty of time to loot and find Shien's prized massive shotgun, the artifact able to unlock his true power. Unfortunately for the girls, a much more sinister fate awaited them. As they approached Lava City, they noticed that a diamond team was landing near them. Not wanting their run to end as fast as it did in the first game, they decided to pivot further south, landing at the Dome, but unfortunately the call was given too late, and due to the lack of communication, Matsuri ended up dropping dangerously close to the enemy squad, and right next to none other than Kuzuha, who, having found a gun before she did, mercilessly put her down.
あー、オッケー、後ろに来てるな、緑。
クズんとこも気をつけて。世界にだんだん僕は好きとって見えなくなって見つけないで僕のことを。
Ayame and Roboco decided to flee instead of picking up her banner as to avoid another early elimination, removing Matsuri from the match for good. Having already lost a game without doing anything, this would prove to be a decisive blow to Happy Set's morale. Matsuri especially felt bad for throwing like that in a tournament she had trained so hard for. And their luck wouldn't get much better from here on. Having fled towards Geyser in search of loot, they ended up ambushed by a team that landed there, and this time Roboco fell, leaving Ayame to skulk around, hoping to at least survive long enough to guarantee them a better spot in the leaderboards. While this was happening, the Chibi Stars found none other than the Chimp Champion himself, and were soon locked in battle with him. Facing the same nemesis that brought them down in the first game, the boys showed that they had learned from their mistakes. Astel's hot-blooded advance was replaced by a much more level-headed call to fall back into a group of nearby houses, as to set up a defensive perimeter. The battle was long-winded and difficult. You could feel the respect the two teams had for each other, as neither wanted to recklessly advance, even with the Guerrillas' primal might on their side. And the Chibi Stars were warming up, their strategies becoming increasingly cohesive, their gameplay synchronized to one another. The battle would see Izuru go down, but with sniper support from Kira, Astel managed to rescue his teammate.
キラフォーカスよろしく。僕の奥側見といてね。ありがとう。ポータル開いた。どっかに。セルある？
Later, Kira himself would fall, but in turn be rescued by a portal created by Izuru.
返した。ポータル。ポータルタク。はい、入って。そこ越し。オッケー。僕が止める。僕が全員止めるから。
The skirmish ended in a stalemate. Being approached by a third party, Team KD3 had to flee. Having suffered no losses on either side, one could see this battle as a net neutral. But this was a huge victory. Having faced one of the strongest teams head-on, this would bolster the Chibi Stars' confidence. The adrenaline was pumping, and they were heating up. If you're curious about the Star Sweepers, they were currently hiding on top of a tower and having a nice chat. Having realized that they were at a significant disadvantage, they opted for a more stealthy approach. And perhaps having been blessed by the gaming gods above, they would go undetected for a good chunk of the match. Continuing the saga of the Chibi Stars, as they headed for the ring, they found Kuzuha's team. Aided by their bolstered confidence, Astel boldly advanced under the covering fire of his teammates, and showed us why he's one of Hololive's top players, taking down Kuzuha and inadvertently taking revenge on the ones who killed their senpai.
こいつフォーカス。オッケー。割れた。ここまで上がるよ。待って、これやばいかも。ここで。ダウン。ワンダウン。ナイス。起こすね。これ。ツーダウン。いやー悪い。あれかなきゃやばいな。終わった。
ナイス。別ポカですかね。
レース来てるわ、ここ。いや、ごめん。
Unfortunately, Kira and Izuru fell in the process, and before they could get back up on their feet, they suffered a fate most common in Apex Legends, as they were third-partied by an opportunistic team. Astel, try as he might, cornered in a 3 vs 1, ended up being taken down. Still, this performance was better. They had fought, and they had won. Being able to hold their heads up high, they awaited for the next game. HoloPro's participation in the second match would end with the Star Sweepers, who had been just chilling inside of a building in Fragment, being found by the same team that took Astel down, and being destroyed by them.
いや生き残って逃げていいよ。もう
やばい、毒ガスがやばい。うわ、上にもいる。いやー、なんか
この家やば。もう2個ぐらい頑張りたい。
Ayame, who had been hiding in the shadows this whole time, was finally caught and, outnumbered 3-1, killed, placing them at the 13th place for the second game.
で、降りて。ここ。あ、大丈夫かな。エリア。どんな。しかも下に別派いた。ごめん。
The match would end in an intense firefight at the center of Fragment, where Gorilla, the last living member of his team, faced off against Uruha's team GG, and ended up being taken out, placing the girls as the victors of the second match. The tournament had its ball break between the second and third match, and the mood in the girls' lobbies was very different from the boys. Happy Set wasn't feeling too hot. These girls are professionals, they kept conversation going somewhat, but you can notice that a feeling of unease had enveloped them. Being halfway through the tournament without a single point was starting to weigh down on them. Their voices grew more timid, their conversations less energetic. But even so, they did as true idols must, shook it off, and prepare for the next match. Meanwhile, Team Chibi Stars entered the same Discord call as the Star Sweepers to exchange some banter. Contrary to the girls, the boys were feeling pretty cheery, as they discussed how their games went so far. The Star Sweepers, while perhaps not there to win, certainly were amongst the teams having most fun in the tournament. Xian's general excitement and low overall expectations gave them plenty of room to at least laugh about how their games have been going. The Chibi Stars, on the other hand, were getting more pumped up than ever. The first two games might not have gone their way, but they're getting better, and Nesto has a mind to make sure that Hololive got a good standing in this tournament. Time passed as the three teams talked, and soon the time for Game 3 had arrived. But not before Esto and Xian could declare to each other that one of them would lose this match, because this game was theirs to win. And, like that, time for pleasantries was over, as the third game began. This time the dropship spawned on the other side of the map, making its way above Sorting Factory and towards Epicenter. The Chibi Stars decided to stick with what they knew, quickly marking Overlook as their drop point for the third game in a row. Xian, after briefly incarnating Yugimoto and attempting to summon the Mastiff once again,
やっぱり俺が行くしかないですか。
そうだよ。
俺のターンやってください。俺のターン、マスティフを召喚。この試合、俺が勝つぜ。
made the call for the Star Sweepers to land at Epicenter for the second time. As for Team Happy Set, their streak of bad luck would prove to continue, as they decided to make an early drop at their favorite point of interest, Lava City. They quickly realized that another team was competing with them for the same spot and, wanting to avoid an early fight and another early elimination, decided to pivot to Dome. But that plan also fell short, as they noticed that yet another team was heading there. Perhaps their lack of confidence got to them by this point, as in an attempt to avoid confrontation at any cost, they decided to drop in a zone with barely any loot. A move that any veteran Apex player knows to be short-sighted, as you'll spend too much time trying to catch up on equipment compared to teams that dropped on better locations. They quickly rotated to the 3 in search of loot, but foreseeably were stuck scavenging from the scraps that the team that got there first left behind. The Star Sweepers, who were blessed with a safe drop yet again, unfortunately found no Mastiff. Knowing that the only way to unlock Xian's true power and thus their only path to victory was to search for one, they headed to Fragment to search for the 8th Millennium item. Unfortunately, that's exactly where the most dangerous players tend to hang around in, and they saw their luck run out, as they ran into none other than the gorilla himself, who made short work of our controller heroes.
あ、やれるか。あー、ダメだったか。誰だ。
あー、ゴリラさんだ。
At the same time, Team Happy Set, who had decided to wait things out for a bit, found themselves beset at both sides by enemy assailants, as two enemy squads approached them, one being none other than the match's champions, Team GG. They fought valiantly, but outnumbered and outgunned, having very little chance to get better gear, they fell in battle once again.
逃げきれない。あー、ごめん。あー、くそ。ガスウルト炊いていいかも。あ、ごめん。ウルト炊いてての。いけなかったの、上に登れなかったな。いや、挟まれたね。あー、GG だな。
It wasn't looking good for Hololive Productions. Team Chibi Stars, who had dropped Overlook, knew that they had to rotate fast as the circle closed in on the other side of the map, and being caught trying to get into it late would spell certain death. Choosing to shirk any engagements with enemies on the way, The three boys noticed the kill feed and realized that their fellow Hololive members had fallen in battle.
GG 切り取ってんな。
取ってるな。ハッピーセットがやられた。
あ、一人やり返してるけど
でも
一人なんかツーシムとなってる
スーフもやってる。
ツーシムやってんな。
スーフとハッピーセットが
あ
ゴリラさんに襲われてる。SS が
どまい。いや
さよなら SS。
ちょっと
いや4キル取ってる。やばすぎ
カバー特攻入ってんだなゴリラさん。
It was up to them to secure Hololive's legacy. They headed to the tree where, unbeknownst to them, Team Happy Set had just fallen mere moments earlier, where they found the last remnants of the two teams that had killed them. Aston managed to take down the last living member of Team GG, but they were third-partied by Team Kiss, and unfortunately, Izuru went down.
後ろいやごめん別側からも入ってきたわ
一回場外ムーバーあり場外ムーバーあり落ち着いて
Knowing that attempting a 2v3 to recover their teammate would be foolish, Asto and Kira instead fled further into the circle, hoping to find an advantageous position. They decided to sneak around for a while, hoping to avoid trouble. With the team now short on one gun, their best chance would be to third-party the larger teams as they were fighting. They managed to find a building on the edge of the circle where a lone Wraith was hiding and managed to chase her off and secure the place for themselves.
なんか
オッケーガス逃げたちょっと待って
ガス置いてから。
オッケー
The Wraith soon proved not to be so alone after all, however, as they were soon locked in battle against her and her teammate. Asto and Kira, having their high ground, managed to take the team down, but a sniper with a charge rifle knocked Asto down in the process.
オッケーな。
もう一人レースいやチャーライ取った
やばいレース国。
In an open field with incoming sniper fire, and his knockdown shield about to run out, things weren't looking good for Asto. But it was in this moment that Kira came with a 10,000 IQ strategy.
僕のとこにガス置けない
オッケー。
無理かな
アンテナ
オッケー
が飛んでる。
一回これでキルするオッケーあマンチャールそれめっちゃ強いそれ
ワンチャンあるよね。
それめっちゃ強い
これ完璧じゃない？
は
来た。
天才いるんだけど
He threw his gas canister in front of Asto and set it off. You see, when going off, Caustic's canisters become indestructible, and at that range, it offered the perfect piece of cover he required to save his ally from the jaws of death. After declaring how glad he was to have a genius on his team and healing up, Asto gave the call for them to move further into the circle, as it was about to close yet again. They found themselves in a defensible position, but the ring required even more movement. They had to cross an unopened field to reach it. As they moved, Asto managed to score a kill on Hachiten, one of the members of Tokyo's school town, but even when they reached the ring, it proved little relief, as they still had to fight Kuzuha's team, who had arrived there too. Asto used his Revenant Totem and went in for the kill, only to find that the enemy team had the exact same idea.
ウルトバッタこれ不幸大不幸
オッケー。ナイス。
ここにパカエル君いるこっち回ってくる僕返された
オッケー。ちょっと殺害されるよ一回。ここ頑張れ固める。
And it was here that something unexpected happened. In the middle of the firefight, Asto lost his footing and dropped into the lava crevice below. But this mistake would soon prove to be perhaps beneficial. They were outnumbered and might not have survived had he stayed up there. Kira unfortunately went down, and even when he tried to crawl to Asto, ended up being killed. With 20 people spectating him, alone in a literal hole, with no recovery items remaining, as Asto put it himself, there was nothing else for him to do other than pray. Now a cornered beast, Asto fought bravely, taking another person down. Alas, not being blessed by the circle's whims and with no way to get back up, Asto fought to his last breath, but was ultimately taken down, giving the win to Team Kanachi Kuzu from Nijisanji. Still, our boys had fought bravely, landing a respectable 7 kills in that game, and with a 3rd place finish, they were rising in the ranks. At this point, a first place finish was mathematically impossible, but as the only Hololive team with more than a single point, it was their duty to secure an honorable place in the leaderboards. Holding their heads up high, our boys headed to the fourth and final game of the tournament. A dark cloud loomed over the HoloPro lobbies. The girls were mostly quiet, occasionally attempting to crack a joke to pierce through the silence. They knew the most they could do at this point was laugh about it. The Star Sweepers were as lively as ever. Like I said before, they surely won the Had Most Fun prize of the tournament, but they weren't going to get a good standing anytime soon. Asto, Izuru, and Kira, the three Chibi Stars, the highest ranking Hololive team, it was up to them. The game started, and the ship was heading in a trajectory very similar to the third games. The Chibi Stars had no doubt. Overlook was working, and they planned to stick with what works. The Star Sweepers dove headfirst into Epicenter, but for the first time in the tournament found a drop spot contested by an enemy team, so they rapidly fled eastwards. The girls unfortunately fell for the same trappings of their shattered confidence again, as in a vain attempt to drop somewhere safe, they ended up pivoting to the same loot baron spot as before. The Chibi Stars decided to repeat their strategy, looting as quickly as possible and heading down to the nearby village in hopes of getting some kills. And sure enough, there were people looting the location. Unbeknownst to them, however, was the fact that the prey they were currently stalking were none other than their Star Sweeper brothers, who had fled from Epicenter in search of loot. The Sweepers, however, proved to have Lady Luck on their side yet again. Before even noticing that they were being hunted, they started rotating into the tunnels, and by the time the Chibi Stars realized what was going on, it was too late. Shien, Miyabi, and Rika had successfully escaped. There would be no bloodshed between brothers today. Team HappySat, in the meantime, would face misfortune yet again. Roboco's computer failed once more. At first they attempted to protect their comrade, but after a message from her telling that she'd most likely not be able to return, Matsuri and Ayame, outnumbered and with their morale at an all-time low, decided that skulking around for the rest of the match, hiding from enemy teams, would be their best chance of success. Being chased by the Chibi Stars, the Star Sweepers ran across Geyser, where they unfortunately would be ambushed by Team Kanachi Kuzu, who would spell doom for Miyabi, who was destroyed by an accurate hail of wingman shots to the back.
行きましょう行きましょう。いやーごめん逃げれなかった。うわーウィングマンか。もういいよ逃げちゃっていいよ逃げちゃっていいよ。いやマジか。
But at least distracted the enemies long enough for Shien and Rika to make their escape to a nearby house, where they would remain undisturbed for most of the remainder of the match. Team Chibi Stars stopped at Geyser, where they decided to take a defensive position and wait the circle out. But peace never lasts long, as the team who had just killed their fellow Holostars now had their sights trained on them. This duel between them would be short-lived, however, as right when the Nijis rushed them, another team arrived, and everyone was forced to disengage, as the threat of a third-party elimination was too high. The Chibi Stars had an advantageous position, however. The house they were in was highly defensible, and they weren't giving it up. This marked the beginning of the most intense battle they would face so far. They were in the middle of many enemy teams, and they all wanted them out. But our boys were tenacious, and they mounted an impressive defense. Kira's gas canisters blocked every entrance. Izuru's watchful eye saw that nobody would approach them undetected, which in turn allowed for small guerrilla warfare-like attacks by Asto, who managed to keep their assailants at bay by chipping at their health, even managing to take out Kuzuha in the process. Revenant's totem also allowed them to leave their safe haven for a push with little repercussion. Eventually, however, GG's Uruha would manage to place a portal inside of their base. This tactic, however, fired back on her, as the Chibi Stars at this point were playing with a level of synchronicity enviable even by professional teams, and managed to knock her down and follow the portal back for a counterattack, successfully taking over the building GG was hiding in.
キラこっちの方面ねめちゃめちゃやりやってるの少ないで。
オッケーオッケーオッケー。
一人やった。白やばい。
カツ置いとく。ちょもう任せ。
Holding a building in such a contested spot this late in the game was no small feat, as any Apex player will know. Surrounded by more teams than they could count, the gameplay in this part is difficult to describe using only words. Their communication was quick, frantic, but at the same time calm and decisive. Precise callouts were given, and the three-man team managed to defend all angles. The Chibi Stars proved to be an impenetrable fortress.
僕とイズル君で行くわ。待って、ポータル。
オッケー、それ見る、それ見る。ボールする、ボールする。
食らってる。これ多分これ取りに来たわ。待って、僕あさってもいい？やば。いくら。イカ帰る。
ガス点化する、ガス点化した。大丈夫、当たれる。
拾えるんだったら拾って。
当たれる。
あ、来て。
あ、それね、絶妙に。
At this point, the circle had shrunk considerably, and the game was nearing its final moments. The Star Sweepers were swept out as they attempted to make their way to the circle. The girls, who were miraculously still hidden, snuck their way into the circle, but unfortunately, Matsuri disconnected from the match, leaving Ayame once again as the sole survivor of Team Happy Set. The Chibi Stars, having held their position for so long, were now running out of supplies. As they defended from their last assailants, unfortunately, Izuru would be taken out by a Revenant Totem Rush combined with a Caustic Ultimate.
帰るよ。
いや、ごめん。
ブルト出た。
オッケー。返した。
はい。
His death, however, allowed his teammates to survive, but they faced a difficult position. Defend this house as they might, no matter how many they fought, it wasn't enough to satiate the whims of the ring, as their next destination was all the way across a barren field with very little cover. The only way to cross it safely was Wraith's ultimate, but alas, Izuru had been killed. With guns aimed at their direction, they knew they weren't going to make it across. But our heroes wouldn't give up. With a final smile, Kira came up with another 10,000 IQ plan. An enemy Wraith who was camping on top of their building had just used her portal to arrive in the circle. They left the house, jumped on top, and then followed the enemy team into their own rift.
どこに行くんだこれ。ガス。入ってないな。
いや、きつ。
Astel, with 3 guns aimed at him, and with the circle fast approaching, fell in battle. Kira pressed on and managed to arrive in the circle before he was found and eventually killed. The match ended in favor of Team Tokyo School Town, whose better positioning and consistent gameplay from Game 1, not relying on a single individual to carry them, but instead playing as a single entity, earned them the trophy, as they were crowned the victors of the first Apex Virtual YouTuber Tournament. But the Chibi Stars' struggles weren't for naught. Their persistency, their team play, and tenacity saw them crawling from the bottom of the leaderboard to a respectable 5th place finish. Had they been coordinated as well as they were in Game 4 since Game 1, I have no doubt in my mind that they could have placed even higher. A good showing for their first tournament. And so, the curtains fell on the main event. The tournament had ended. The night would still go on, however, as the after parties still remained for any VTuber up to it. I won't cover it in detail, but the after party games consisted in melee-only matches where Astel was placed in the same team as Matsuri, and hilarity ensued. I'll place a link in the video description for those interested in seeing it. Suffice it to say, it was enough to bring back some joy to Matsuri after everything Team Happy Set had gone through. And so here we are, months after the tournament. Let's go over what happened to our contestants. Team Happy Set, being composed of 3 very popular VTubers from Hololive, shook off their defeat. The Oni Princess would hang her Apex mantle, but her streams are still always fun, whenever she deems us worthy of gracing us with her presence, that is. Roboco would need a few weeks before she went back to Apex, but sure enough she returned and still does frequent streams of the game with her beloved charged rifle. Matsuri, proving yet again to be as much of an Apex addict as Astel, didn't take very long to come back to playing at all. Nowadays, she became friends with Pekeo from Team Tokyo Schooltown, and even joined her in another VTuber tournament with her as a teammate. These girls are idols after all, and even when times are bad, idols must always remember to smile and power through, because their fans will always be there for them. Xian's list of crimes against humanity is still growing to this day. His love for the Mastiff shotgun never faded, and neither did any of the Star Sweepers' stubborn commitment to playing with a controller. They can all be found streaming together often. Rika even had his 3D debut, and Xian streams where he voice acts visual novels are always a fun time. To this day, Astel, Izuru and Kira still refer to themselves as the Chibi Stars, a title that none who watch the tournament would soon forget. Izuru often does singing live streams and plays Apex with Astel for hours and hours. Unfortunately, as I was recording this video, Kira graduated from Hololive Productions due to health concerns. Regardless of wherever he goes next, we'll always remember him as an irreplaceable member of the Chibi Stars. And last, but certainly not least, there's the boy wonder Astel. The fire in his heart for Apex Legends never faded. He still plays way more than your average human would find reasonable. And he even became friends with none other than Meika, one of the members of Gorilla's squad, and together they had very fun Apex live streams. Tragically, however, Astel hasn't been able to join any Apex tournaments ever since. While this championship had invites given out, most VTuber tournaments have strict subscriber cutoffs one must meet if they're to join. As of this video's recording, Astel has just reached the 30,000 subscriber minimum required for most tournaments. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a big fan of his. Even if Apex isn't your cup of tea, Astel legitimately has one of the greatest singing voices in all of HoloPro. His singing streams, many of which are on archive, have him singing Japanese classics, Disney songs, and even some songs in English, and they're always a ton of fun. So give the boy a chance. We deserve to watch more tournaments like this. And that was the story of the first VTuber Apex Legends tournament. It was certainly one of the more unique things I've ever watched. Knowing most of the people in it, their stories, their content, seeing them all in the same map, watching the different perspectives and wondering who is going to kill who next, makes for a very thrilling experience that only these virtual gladiatorial blood sports can provide. Truly, entertainment worthy of the 21st century. If you made it all the way through this video, I want to thank you for watching. This was one of the most fun projects I've ever worked on, and I hoped it was fun to watch too. If you liked it, consider leaving a like to help me out, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. See you next time.